Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, a new perek, talking about how careful does one have to be not to damage someone else. A person should not dig a pit in his own property near his friend's pit. Not a ditch, not a different type of ditch, like an irrigation ditch or a launderer's pool to wash your stuff. Nothing nearby. Unless he distances it from his friend's wall, 3 tvachim. The Gemara doesn't ask. We just said you shouldn't dig your pit next to your friend's pit, and it says distance from your wall, 3 tvachim. We're going to explain it. And after that, 3 tvachim, you also have to apply lime to the walls so that it solidifies and won't weaken the nearby property. Someone puts olive pits, which is used like a type of fuel, manure, salt, lime, and stones. Also has to be distanced 3 tvachim away from your friend's wall. Also, or you could just lime it. Seeds, plowing, and urine must be distanced 3 tvachim from your friend's wall. The mill made up of 2 parts. The top part had to be 3 tvachim away from the wall, which is 4 tvachim from the lower part, because the lower part of the millstone was larger. The oven piece, the lower part of the oven, which was smaller, 3 tvachim from your friend's wall, which is 4 tvachim from the upper part, which is bigger. Okay, so we asked this question already. We explained this question. The Gemara asks, what do you mean? We said at the beginning of the Mishnah, you should distance your pit from your friend's pit. Then it said, that's why distance from your wall, 3 tvachim. So we're talking about pits or walls. The Gemara says, when the Mishnah is saying from its wall, it means from the wall of this pit. But in Achanai, we're talking about walls. Pits. Let me, the Gemara says, okay, then just mention pit to pit. 3 tvachim from your friend's pit. Why you have to mention wall of the pit? Just mention the pit itself. Gemara says, the chidush is the width of a bore, the wall of a bore, should be 3 tvachim. The difference is, what's the difference? Who cares? The difference is because of the sale, business deals. The time Batra says, someone tells his friend, I'm selling you the pit that I have and the walls, the property around the walls. You have to give him at least 3 tvachim wide. That is how much the guy is entitled to. Okay, Itmar. If someone wants to put a pit near the boundary, near the division of the properties, Rabbi says, he could do it without any problems. Rabba says, you can't do it. You have to distance 3 tvachim. So the Gemara says, what type of case we're talking about? If it's lands that regularly have pits, everybody would agree that you shouldn't dig it because the guy is going to eventually probably put up a pit there. Where it's not regularly put. Says you could put it there because there's no reason to believe the guy will start putting it there. Rabba says no, you can't put it. Because the neighbor can say, even though it's not usual we put pits, you put one. Maybe I also want to dig a pit, and therefore it's not fair. Ikadam reads different version regarding land which is not the practice, not usually putting pits. You can put the pit there. Where's the machloket? Machloket is where there is the usual practice is to put it. So what's going on? Abai says you could put it there even though it's the practice. I feel that because according to even Hachamim in the Machloket we've seen elsewhere, a person has to distance his tree 25 amot from the pit of someone else. The difference is, in that case, the reason why you have to distance it for potential damage is because while you're putting the tree there, the pit already exists. Over here, it's different because the other guy doesn't have a pit there yet, therefore it's mutar. Rabba says, you can't put it. But even according to the other opinion, where generally you're allowed to put whatever you want on your own property, you don't have to worry about your neighbor. Over here, over there, because if there, when the guy is putting his tree, there is no current roots to damage currently, and therefore it's mutar. the neighbor who wants to dig the pit, over here, when you're digging your pit and you're digging deep inside, I could tell you, what are you doing? Every single time you put that shovel into the ground, you're weakening my property, and that's why it is different. Our Mishnah said that a person should not dig a pit next to his neighbor's pit unless it's in 3 tvachim. The reason why you can't dig is because there is already a pit on the other side. But if there was no pit there, you'd be able to put it there. Now it makes sense according to the second version we just said of the Machlok between Abaye and Rava. Referring to land where it's not usually putting pits, because Masatin our Mishnah is referring to there's no pits there, and that's why Rava would agree you could put it there. According to the first version, where the Machloket is where there is the minhag to put pits. When there's no minhag to put pits, rather, that's where the machloket is. That's why you're allowed to put it there, because there's no pit yet. According to Rava, who hold that you can't put it there even if there's no other pit there. Our Mishnah has a question against them. Where it says, Rava would answer you. Like we see elsewhere, when our Mishnah says from your friend's wall, it's referring to the wall of his pit. Therefore, our Mishnah could prove, according to Rava, the same thing, that when you're digging a pit next to someone else's property, you have to put a distance between the gap between the boundaries. Ikdam, a different version. Mishnah says that when it means from the wall of his pit, it means you have to put a boundary between the wall and your pit. According to the version that said where the land is normally puts pits. And that's why everybody would agree you can't put a pit near the border. And that's referring to a case. Therefore, our Mishnah was referring to the case where it is also the minhag to put pits in that land, and therefore Abaye would agree. But according to the second version that said the machloket is where it is the place to put pits. Our Mishnah would make sense according to Rava, who says that you can't dig it, just like our Mishnah. According to Abaye, who says mutar kasha. It's a question. Answer you. Our Mishnah is referring to a case it's asur when they're both digging at the same time. In that case, each guy has his distance, because it's not a regular case where I'm digging and then you want to dig afterward. That's okay, because when I'm digging, it's not a problem. But over here, we're both digging at the same time. You have to be careful. Tashma, next question. If there's land that the ground is so soft that you could dig it with your hands, this person may dig in his property. This guy can make a pit in his property. This guy has this in 3 tvachim and put lime. The other guy has to put 3 tvachim and lime. So it sounds like a person who's digging his own property has a distance and put lime. There's a question against Abaye who says mutar, without any restrictions. Mar says in that case is different because it's so soft. Abaye would agree that it's asur because it's more damaging because it's so soft. So even if I'm going to say, even though generally you're allowed to dig it without any problem, but because the soil is soft and I'm digging, it could cause more damage, and Abaye would agree. So the Gemara said, if that's the case, then what's the hidush? Like Abaye, what would be the hidush? If the point is the soft soil, then obviously the reason why you can't do it is because soft soil. So what the hidush is when you mention this case, you might think because the soil is so soft, maybe you should do more than 3 tvachim. Maybe you should do 5 tvachim in case of soft soil. The Mishnah teaches you that soft soil has the same halacha of 3. Tashma, melach, betasid, betasaim. Our Mishnah said that you have to distance olive pits, manure, salt, lime, and saim and stones from your friends. 3 tvachim from your friend's wall. Also basid or apply lime. So you see that the wall's already there. So the reason why you have to do it distance is because there is a wall. But there's no wall, be mutar. The question against Rava who holds that you can never do it, even if it's not there yet. The Gemara says, but really the halacha is even if there's no wall used also on sword. But what's the hidush? If there is a wall, so why mention the wall? The hidush is that these items are what is dangerous to the wall. These items can cause that damage to the wall. Tashma. Our Mishnah said that you can't put seeds, plowing, urine next to 3 tvachim from the friend's wall. Sounds like the reason is so because there is a wall. There's no wall, be mutar. Where it says la, there's no walls asur. My the Hidush is tell you what the mitnuta kasha lakota moisture. All these things create moisture and gases to rise up to the wall. That's dangerous for the wall. Very similar step and process in the Gemara right now. Very easy to follow. Tashma. Millstones, 3 tvachim from the lower, which is 4 tvachim from the upper. Time at the another reason why it's a sword because the wall's already there. There's no wall. Time mutar. Mar says la. Even if there's no wall, it's a sword. But my commercial is putting us that there is a wall. The reason why we're teaching you the wall is there to teach you that the vibrations of the millstone grinding things can damage walls. Tashma, but that's in order to mentioned the oven. The lower part has to be 3 tvachim away, and the upper part has to be 4 tvachim away. That's not the reason why you can't put the oven there because there's a wall there. But there's no wall, be a sword. Question against Rava. Where it says, even if there's no wall, it's a sword, like Rava says. What's the Hidush of the Mishnah? The Hidush over there is teaching you that heat is bad for the wall. Tashma. A person cannot open a bakery or a dye shop underneath the storage house of his friend. Right? So his friend owns a second floor apartment. The guy's living on the first floor, and on the second floor, the guy puts grain there. You cannot start opening up a bakery and stuff because the damage will, the dye and the heat and the bakery will go into the second floor and damage it. So Tama the Ika also the reason why it's a store because there's already a storeroom there. How like maybe mutar if there's nothing there. Question against Rava. Mar says dira shani, but there the person's house is different, and therefore, if he wants to open it up, it'd be mutar. Unless when you're doing it, there's damage. Take an we can prove it. Because the Mizbah says over there, only if it's there already, it's asur. But if you were first and you want to put a bakery there, no problem. But otherwise, it's asur because it's a residence. Tashma. That person should not plant a tree near the vineyard of his friend. This is 4 amot away. The Batra says over there. When we said it's 4 amot, you have to leave enough room to work the vineyard. That's why. The reason why you have the distance is only because you need space to work the vineyard. Sounds like without that, be mutar to put a tree there. Even though there's roots that will damage it. So we see Rava holds, generally you can never do it. But over here, next to your friend's land, but over here, you can do it. You only reason why you can't do it because of current damage. But if there was no current damage, it will be mutar. Question against Rava, who holds that's always a sword. Over there, the reason why it's mutar otherwise is because there's a rocky terrain in between, and therefore the roots won't damage it. They cannot maintain it because we can prove it. Because what does it say? If there's a fence in between, this guy can place his tree near his fence. This guy can put his tree in that fence. And then you see that it would be asur if there was no rocky terrain, because what's the difference of the fence going there? It'll still travel underneath. So it must be that it'll be mutar because there's rocks blocking the roots. The next part of the Mishnah says, if the roots are going into the neighbor, you can cut them off 3 tvachim deep. So that your roots don't ruin my plowing. If there's rocky terrain in between, how are you getting roots there? Make up your mind. How can the same case have roots? We just said there's rocky terrain in between. The Gemara says, the Hidush is in the second scenario, where the roots are going through, is if there's no rocky terrain, and therefore the roots are traveling to my property, I could cut them off 3 tvachim deep, so my plow doesn't get affected. Tashma. Person should distance his tree 25 amot away from the pit of your friend. Tama the Ika since the only reason that's the word because there's already a pit there. Halakha above the pit. Samo chit mutar. Question like a Rava, it's always a sword. Says la. Kilaka bornami. Even there's no pit of the sword. Lo samich you can't do it. La kamashma la hidush is the other 25 amot azli shorashim must get aboard. The reason is because 25 amot is the length of how far roots will go to damage pit. Yeah, that's the case. Ema Sefer, the next part of the Mishnah says Ilan kadam, but if the tree is there first, lo you cut, you don't have to cut down the tree. It's true that you can't put it in the boundary. What would be the scenario? Meaning, according to the Bible, you can never put it. But the next part of the Mishnah says that if the tree is there first, it's mutar. So what's the case? Rava says you can never do it. So how's that possible if the tree will be there first? The Gemara says, well, we're referring to a case where the guy sold partial of his field. So the guy put a tree in his land 50 feet away from the border. But then he sold 20 amot away from the border, from the tree. He sold it to someone else. He split his field in half and sold it. So now the guy bought it, that land, with the tree within the 20-foot amot away. And then in that case, the Gemara teaches you that if the tree was there first, then you don't have to cut it. And then